Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is James Duff Merritt, and I want to welcome you to the K-Sam Speaks podcast. Now, this is a podcast where topics involving law enforcement are discussed while offering real and transparent answers. Now, we are not trying to change the world, but just change one heart at a time. Here's your host, K-Sam.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Appreciate my boy James for that intro as always. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, make sure y'all go to defclothing.com and peep y'all some gear. Make sure y'all get some gear. So let me explain a little bit what DEF means. And I love it. I love it. That's why I always support it. And I'm always on board for it. So DEF means don't ever accept failure. My God. Whew. Don't ever accept failure. And that's just an easy motto to live by. Don't ever accept failure. But ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to another episode. I'm glad y'all are tuning in. I would like to get started by thanking all of my followers, my supporters, people that like the page, the YouTube channel. If y'all haven't liked the YouTube channel, make sure y'all get out there, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to build that up. It's free to watch on YouTube, baby. It's free. We ain't got to worry about Spotify and Apple Podcasts where you got to pay your little subscription and stuff. Baby, YouTube free. And you get to see this. You get to see me, baby. Yeah. But man, before we get started, Eclipse. Can we talk about this Eclipse for a second? Because look, I'm going to be the first to admit, I was like, okay, people are tripping. People are wilding out over this Eclipse. Why are we acting crazy over this Eclipse? Like, man, I saw a lady had a tent selling solar eclipse glasses. Like, I respect the hustle. I respect the hustle. But my girl had a whole tent set up selling eclipse glasses. I saw one lady selling eclipse glasses and a box of moon pies. Like, that's a combo right there. I saw people ranting on Facebook trying to figure out if the schools was going to allow these kids to watch the eclipse. Some people let their kids stay home, to experience this. So, like, all let's say, like, people was wild. They got street signs talking about no stopping on the side of the highways, and I could just about imagine what the roadways look like when the transition was happening. Which is why I stayed home. I was in my backyard chilling in a rocking chair, geeked out behind this because I was like, "What? Like this is legit." But I'll be the first to say, I didn't understand all the hype. I was like, bro, these people are tripping out. They wilding for what? Like, it's an eclipse. But touche. Mother Nature, the Lord. Boy, that was just beautiful. That was beautiful. I'm glad I was able to experience that. And I hope if you didn't get to experience, you go check it out. I'm sure they gonna have videos and pictures and all this other good stuff all over social media, where you can find all that. But poof, I was blown away of what that eclipse looked like. I didn't know what to expect, but I definitely wasn't expecting me to get all excited like that. But the times we live in, history, baby, history. So moving along from that, I always like to start my shows talking about my statistics until we start making some changes out here in this world. So I don't have numbers for suicides, because that only comes out about once a month. So I think my last episode, I gave the updated numbers for that. So I have the updated numbers for the number of officers shot for the first 3 months of the year. Whew, these numbers, again, are disturbing. So let's jump right into it, though. So for the first 3 months of the year, we have 100 police officers shot. At the current time of this episode, 100 police officers shot in the line of duty. Shot. That's like shot, not shot at, shot in the line of duty in the first 3 months. Out of that 100, we have 10 that were killed in the line of duty. 10 out of 100. So let's break that down a little bit. And I didn't do this, Matt. I'm from Louisiana. My Matt be a little bit off sometimes. So don't come at me like that. But that's about averaging one officer shot every 22 hours. Think about that. One police officer shot every 22 hours in the first 3 months of the year. What are we doing about this? Lawmakers, where y'all at? President Joe Biden, Vice President, where y'all at? When are we going to start getting out there in the forefront? When are we going to start getting out there on the news channel? Hey, they was all over the news channel for George Floyd and everybody else that was killed by law enforcement. Where y'all at when it comes down to the people that's out here protecting us, protecting y'all? Where y'all at? So I just want to bring that number up because I felt that's too much. One is too much, but you go to 100 in 3 months. I'm more concerned. I think we finished at about 300. I think it was like 368, if I'm not mistaken, for the end of last year. A total number of officers shot. So we about 268 shy already after the first 3 months. So I'm hoping we don't beat 368 if that was the number. But the way we going, not looking good. So let's move along. So I was asked a couple of questions in reference to the last episode with the Mississippi Goon Squad, and somebody wanted to know what was the difference between federal time and I guess like just normal jail time. So federal time, when somebody gets sentenced in federal court, one of the major differences is federal inmates serve an average of 85% of their sentences. So for an example, which means they have to serve 85% before they become eligible to be released. So for example, if you're sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, that means you actually have to serve 8.5 years of prison before you're eligible for any type of, I guess, probation, parole, or any type of early release. Versus more your state jail felony convictions, you only serve 50% of your actual sentence time. So people get so worked up or get even excited when they see how much time somebody gets. Let me see, let me find it. Let's go back to so for example, with the Mississippi Goon Squad. So all these officers that were sentenced and found guilty were sentenced on federal charges. So like, for example, one officer is facing a max sentence of 120 years plus life in prison. I don't think Buddy getting out. And he had $2.75 million in fines. And then like another one is facing a possible sentence of 80 years. And I don't know, this article probably was wrote before the sentencing actually came out. So that's probably why it says possible. But possible sentence of 80 years with $1.5 million in fines. Another guy was sentenced to 90 years with $1.75 million in fines. Another one was sentenced to 80 years with $1.5 million. And the last one was sentenced to 100 years. Ooh, them boys got some time. With the $2 million fine. Jeez. Yeah, they got some time. So that's the difference between when I said that they were in federal court and they got federal charges on them for torturing these two black gentlemen. Man, I was just kind of reading a little bit more about the story, and like these officers like on next level. Like they were fined $400 million in civil lawsuits against the department. But like sex toys, chocolate syrup, handcuffs, tasers, like they really didn't shot one of them in the mouth. Like, man, that's wild. But so that's one question that somebody asked me to touch base on with this Mississippi Goon Squad story. And something I also want to touch base on is I want to give some pay respects and condolences to a New York police officer, Jonathan Diller, who was shot and killed in the line of duty on March 25th. Officer Jonathan Diller of NYPD. So we're gonna dive into that story a little bit and talk about what happened with Officer Diller. But like I said, on March 25th, Officer Diller and his partner found an illegally parked vehicle near a bus station. And they kept asking repeatedly for the driver and the passenger to roll down the window. So finally, after going back and forth, they were able to open up the car door. Once the door was open, one of the suspects shot Officer Diller in the stomach, right below that vest. So for those who, I would stand up and kind of give y'all a little visual, but so in most cases, your bullet resistant vest should stop like a couple inches from your belt line. So you have a very, very small gap that's not really protected. So it should stop somewhere by your belt line, before your belt line. Some is way shorter. Not taking a knock on my big boy officers. And some, like me, I wear my pants high. So mine almost touches my belt line. So don't come at me for wearing my pants high. My grandpa always got on me about keeping my pants up. So I always wear my pants high. Now, so the guy shot Officer Diller in the stomach, and then he pointed his gun at the backup officer and tried to pull the trigger, but the gun was loaded. But the gun was jammed, I'm sorry. Officer Diller was transported to a nearby hospital where he succumbed to his injuries, and then he was laid to rest on Saturday. So the cool thing about this is, as much people hate him, former President Donald Trump actually paid his respects and attended the funeral and spoke, which I think that means a lot. Like that means a lot. That shows your law enforcement that, hey, I stand with you. And I think that's what the current president and vice president and everybody else should be doing, is attending these funerals when they happen and paying the respect that these officers deserve. But one of the suspects was indicted on Monday of when this happened, criminal possession of a weapon charge for a second gun that they found in the car. So this is what is it? I think this happened 2 years ago, where the last time an officer or two officers were shot and killed in the line of duty was 2 years ago, when the two officers, I forgot their names, when the two officers got shot and killed at the apartment complex. I remember that one because they were some young cats too. So if convicted, the suspect could face up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And then the other guy who was in the car with them could face 15 years in addition to another 15 years for an unrelated and ongoing weapons charge from 2023. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is why you hear so many people get worked up over criminal history of people. Because if you look at these criminal histories of folks, yeah, people change, and just because there is their history, that doesn't mean that they should still be looked at any type of way. But here's the issue we having. So clearly, these wasn't your outstanding citizens who were just stopped on the side of the road reading their Bible or doing something. So if they didn't have nothing to hide, then why shoot this officer for no reason? But because they have the history, I'm sure they're probably out on probation, parole, whatever the case is, and they knew that they was dirty. And what I mean by being dirty was they had something on them illegal, whether it was guns or drugs, dead bodies, whatever. They knew that whatever was about to happen, they had the potential to go back to prison. So they chose that I'm not going back to prison, that I'd rather shoot and kill try to shoot and kill both officers and then get away and be on the run. So with this criminal history aspect, if they are sentenced harsh the prior times, and I'm not saying your first strike you need to be thrown the book at, but some crimes need to be handled more serious and be issued more serious times than what we're currently seeing, because a lot of this stuff could be avoided if these bad people are put away where they're supposed to be. But here we are, still fighting this daily battle. So, man, Officer Diller been with the New York Police Department for 3 years. He was married and had a young child. So, and this is where it breaks my heart, knowing that, God forbid, if something was to happen to me in the line of duty, what I leave behind. I will leave behind a wife and a young child. I have a 2-year-old. So that's why I become so passionate about these numbers of 100 police officers being shot and killed in the line of duty because of that. It hits home. So just challenge. I want to challenge everybody, all my listeners or viewers now, so y'all can see me. Just imagine if your spouse was a police officer, your brother was a police officer, your parents were police officers, and you get that call that they were killed in the line of duty. How would that make you feel? And I think that's the problem is in today's society, we don't know how to relate to each other problems because it's not happening to me. So I'm not affected by it. But we should very much so be concerned and affected by it. Because here's what's soon going to happen, or is happening right now. We have a recruiting crisis in law enforcement. It's hard to find good quality candidates who wants to do this job. And I always tell, especially new officers, green officers who no police experience, I always like to shake their hands and tell them thank you and give them kudos for wanting to join a profession that's always trying to be tarnished. Well, not even trying. Let me stop. That's always being tarnished because it's being tarnished by cops. It's being tarnished by news media, being tarnished by social media. It's being tarnished by your average day citizens, and it's being tarnished by politicians, everybody. So everybody is throwing jabs and throwing knives at law enforcement. And for you to wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I want to be a cop in 2024, kudos to you. And I applaud you for that. So we need people, good quality people that wants to do this job. Because what's going to happen is 100, I guarantee you, if I wasn't in this career already, I don't think anybody could convince me to want to be a cop. Like, why join a profession at this current point where I know people hate me? Again, for my new listeners, I was a firefighter before I became a cop. So, like, I had it pretty good. Who hates firefighters? I'll wait. You tell me one person that hated a firefighter. But I challenged myself to go out and make a difference and be that person that could make a difference into a profession that was being so tarnished. And I go out, that's my goal every day, is to go out and hope that I can leave a better impression on the person I cross paths with who possibly may have had a negative impression on law enforcement. I just want to leave them with a better aspect on law enforcement than what they probably had before. That's my goal. So you keep getting officers and you keep getting these numbers going up like this, the profession will continue to take a hit. People that's eligible to retire will just go. Because why stay in a profession where you don't feel appreciated? And some cities do appreciate their officers. Most people do appreciate the officers, but it's one thing to assume that you're being appreciated and another thing to be shown that you're being appreciated. So that's why we as a community, as a country, need to make a stand that's showing these criminals, hey, if you are out here looking to hurt the people that's out here trying to protect us, then we not standing for this. And judges and lawmakers and stuff, let's go, baby. It's time. It's time. Shout out to man, he's the Fraternal Order of Police. I think the National Police Fraternal Order. I think he's the president. But that man, I think his name is Joe, if I'm not mistaken. But he go hard behind us. And I appreciate him. I appreciate all his efforts. I just shared, if y'all go to the podcast Instagram page, I just shared a video from him. I think it was last night, where he was talking about another incident where a suspect shot and killed a police officer a couple years ago, and this man got time served. Like, what? Like, time served? But that's probably a whole nother episode on that. But yeah, so like I said, I just want to pay respects to Officer Jonathan Diller on this aspect. Prayers for his family, his wife, and his young kid as they go through this difficult time. So transitioning, this is why I titled this episode, which I didn't say the title, but I titled this episode Payday because we going to Nashville, Tennessee, where we going to discuss the story that happened back in 2023, where 5 Laverne police officers were fired after an investigation took place into a multiple sexual act between members of the department. So for those who don't know the story, you had one female officer, Officer Megan Hall, and you have 4 other officers, which was one including the sergeant. But yeah, you have 4 or 5 other officers who were all in the midst of a sex ring. Some way, somehow, it got exposed. It got reported to HR, and an investigation took place. So according to this article, the investigation started back in December 12th, 2022, when the mayor reported rumors of sexual acts to the city's human resource department, and then an investigation took place. So he received information from a source that Officer Megan Hall was having intimate relationships with other members of the Laverne Police Department. All of the men admitted to having undisclosed sexual relationships with Hall, and the investigation led to the firing of the police chief also. So Hall performed oral sex. So one of the officers said Hall performed oral sex on him while they were on duty inside the police department gym before returning to their desks to finish their workday. Wow. They also had reports of an uncovered Girls Gone Wild type party involving multiple officers and their families in a hot tub on one of the sergeants who were involved houseboat, where Officer Hall's top came off and officers were drinking. So, they partying, and she was the star of the party. So then, so here's where it gets kind of critical, because Laverne has a 60-person police department. So it's a small police department with 11 sworn positions. So 11, and you had like 5 or 6 out of 11 that ultimately got fired. So after the investigative report, they found multiple mentions of sexual acts being performed at the department substation. Some officers participating in open marriages with each other and sending explicit naked photos between officers. The report also said officers held football watch parties where officers drove home under the influence of alcohol, kissed, and discussed having threesomes with Hall and their wives. So, I remember when this story first dropped. Gosh, the social media is always undefeated, but man, they were on Hall. Like they was not sparing her anything. Like they were giving it to her. They had memes and all the sayings and stuff like that on her. So 12 days after the initial firings, they ultimately uncovered another shocking sexual scandal that was taking place in the past. So all this comes out. Then it comes out that the police chief knew about it, and he was possibly involved in kind of enticing the behavior. So after all this, Officer Hall ended up filing a lawsuit where she settled the civil rights lawsuit, and they paid her out $500,000. $500,000. But the details came out that between her and the other officers, And she gave her little story and stuff like that, where she pretty much said that she was groomed to do all this. And she was the only female I think she said she was the only female in the department, or she was one of very few females in the department. But man, again, cover-ups, dirty work by law enforcement. It's just never like it. It's just wild. Like when you hear these stories, and look, I'm sure is more happening out there like such. People got to realize that we are still human. Police officers are still human, and like mistakes, not even mistakes, like whatever. We're not perfect. Let's just say that we're not perfect, and stuff is going to happen. We're going to make some wild decisions, but $500,000, I wouldn't even want to be a cop. All right, nothing lost right there. Nothing lost. But we are going to start wrapping it up on this episode. But before I go, as always, I want to leave y'all with my words of encouragement. My words of encouragement. Again, this one comes from my boy, James Def Merritt. The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. That is all for this episode of K-Sam Speaks Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. See y'all next time.